Good day, everyone. We are from Surigao del Norte National High School. This is our computer system servicing in Quarter 1 performance task. This is presented to Mr. Constancio Sarte Jr. So let us introduce ourselves first. I am Rosal Margie Budlong, together with G.I. Ishiki Garcia, Hannah Espanto, Precious May Jem Japos, Precious Charm Caldo, Charlie Cuse, and Joseph B. Agolio. So this video is all about step-by-step instructions for assembling and disassembling a system unit. So how to assemble a system unit?
Step 1. Open the case. Open the computer case by removing the side panels. Find the screws that hold the side panels in the place and remove them. The panel is removed by first sliding it back, then lifting it away from the case.
Step 2. Install motherboard. Check the screw hole locations in the motherboard for exact placement. Lower the motherboard into the case and align with the input-output bezel. Install the screws. It works best to leave the screws loose until all of them have been started and the board is aligned with the bezel.
Step 3. Install the hard drive. The hard drive is the device that stores all your data. It is 3.5 wide and needs to be mounted so that you can gain access to the cable connections on the back. If that is not possible, you may need to connect cables before you install the drive. To mount the drive, find the 3.5 drive by to install the drive in. If you have trouble finding a place to mount the drive, consult your case documentation for suggestion. Slide the drive into place until the screw holes on the sides are lined up with the holes in the case. Install the screws.
Step 4. Install optical drive. Slide the drive into the drive by until the screw holes are lined up and the front of the drive is flush with the front of the case. Make sure that it is orientated correctly. Install the screws.
Step 5. Install the CPU. Find the corner marking that designates pin 1 of the CPU. On this AMD brand processor, the corner is marked with an arrow. Consult the manufacturer's documentations for specific information about your processor. Lift the small metal rod next to the socket. Find the corresponding marking on the CPU socket and insert the CPU so that the markings are lined up. Push the rod down to lock the processor in place.
Step 6. Install RAM. RAM is the temporary memory location that the processor works from. Permanently shorted data is pulled from disk and stored in RAM while the processor works with it. The memory is easy to install. Set the RAM board in the socket as the shown and check to see that the notch in the board is in the correct location. If it is not, turn it around 180 degrees. Press firmly on the both ends of the board to set it into the socket. Make sure that the tabs lock into place.
Step 7. Install the CPU fan. The CPU fan is really a combination of a heat sink and fan together. The unit draws heat away from the CPU. To install the fan, place thermal compound to the CPU, following the instructions provided with the compound. Set the fan assembly on the CPU with mounting tabs aligned. Pull the locking rod down the fan assembly to lock into place. And lastly, connect the fan assembly's power connector to the motherboard. Consult the manual to determine proper placement.
Step 8. Install the case fan. The case fan is usually installed on the back panel of the case. If the fan mount is not obvious, consult the case documentation. To mount the fan, align the mounting holes by holding the fan to the mounting pad on the inside of the case. The fan needs to be mounted so that it blows air out of the case. Insert the screws from the outside of the case.
Step 9. Install power supply. To install the power supply, alight the mounting holes in the case and power supply. Insert screw and light cable.
Step 10. Connect cables. With all the components installed in the case, the jungle of wires can be daunting. It is important to consult the motherboard manual in order to make sure proper connections are made. There are two kinds of connections, power and data. Every device that has been installed needs power. The power supply connectors are shown. The motherboard has two power connections, and there are two connectors specially for SATA devices or drives. The other connectors will run fans and other non-SATA devices. Data cables connect drives, front panel devices to the motherboard. Please consult the motherboard documentation for exact placement of
Wow, I am so
connectors.
very proud of you. You overcome all the steps. This is the last step. Step 11. Wrap up. Now that the components are completely installed, the last thing to do is to reinstall the side panels on the case. The computer is now ready to be turned on and to have software loaded on it. If the computer has problems starting up, check all component connections and mounting to make sure that you have hooked everything up correctly. Consult individual component manuals for specific troubleshooting information if problem persists. How to disassemble a system unit. Step 1. Unplugging. Unplug every cable that is connected to the computer. An important tip: wear a grounding strap or touch an unpainted metal part of the computer to discharge any static electricity.
Step 2. Remove side cover. Before proceeding, remove the black casing from the system unit by sliding it to the front. Then, set aside the case because you no longer need it.
Step 3. Remove power supply. The power supply manages all the power of the computer. The power supply is a large metal box located in the top left corner. The power supply supplies power to every component in a computer. Therefore, it has the most wires out of every other component in the computer. The first thing you do is unplug every wire coming from the power supply. The list below is everything that you have to disconnect: the motherboard, CD or DVD drives power, internal hard drive power, portable hard drive slot power. Once everything is unplugged, unscrew the screws holding the power supply in place on the back of the computer. Next, push the power supply from the outside, then lift it out. Step 4. Remove CD or DVD drive. Unscrew the screw holding the drive and just push the gray metal and pull out the drive.
Step 5. Remove system fan. First, unplug the fan from the motherboard. You can find the plug by following the wire from the fan. It should be labeled SY as fan 1. Next, you will have to unscrew the fan from the outside. You should now be able to lift the fan out of the PC. Keep the screw bolt aside in a bag so when you assembling it back, it will be easier.
Step 6. Remove CPU fan. The CPU fan is located right on top of the CPU heatsink, which is a large piece of metal with fins on the top. The CPU fan plugs into the motherboard, which is hard to access, but just follow the wires and you should easily find it. To remove the fan from the heatsink, remove the 4 screws securing it in place.
Step 7. Remove the hard drive disc. Remove the metal casing on the top side of the PC. Remove the hard drive from the computer. Keep the screws bolt aside in a bag so when you assembling it back, it will be easier.
Step 8. Remove RAM. Random access memory. To remove the RAM, push down on both tabs holding the RAM in place, which are located at both ends of the RAM.
Remove CPU. Remove the CPU by working the lever handle with care.
Step 10. Assemble. Remove CPU battery. To remove the CPU battery, just simply push the lock and the battery will pop out.
Step 11. Remove the motherboard. The motherboard has 7 screws holding it to the frame, which are indicated by large white circles around them. Remove those 7, then lift the motherboard out of the frame.
Keep the screws and bolt aside in a bag, so when you're assembling it back, it will be easier.
Step 12. Done. These are all the components that are disassembled from the PC.
That's all. I hope you learned something from us. Thank you for watching.